Welcome back to the Thermo Diet Podcast. I'm your host, Jayton Miller, and today I have one of the UMZU ambassadors on, Mr. Shane Banks. So let's get into this one. How's it going today, Shane?
It's going well, Jayton. Thanks for having me on, man. Appreciate it.
Heck yeah. So could you kind of just give us a brief overview of what you'd like to talk about? Because I know you're a man that just does extreme physical activity and you're extremely driven. So can you kind of give us a brief overview of what you'd like to bring to us?
Sure. I think the biggest thing is it's kind of like staying on the path, how to find your path, and then you mark it out, and then how to stay on it. The biggest thing is, like, I found, and the most excitement that I get is, folks who want to get started. That's the most exciting part of the process. It's also the biggest part of the process. It's also the scariest part of the process. And so really, I guess to sum it up is like the old saying of like, the best way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. So just some things that I've done throughout, not all of my life, but since I was about 30 is when I kind of saw where I was and where I wasn't happy, and then how I've just progressively in each and every day worked to stay and work towards that goal of I wouldn't say happiness, but that fulfillment there.
Definitely. So what are some of the tools that you kind of diagnose that position where you're at, and then how do you kind of direct yourself to where you want to go?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the first thing that for me is I understood that the biggest thing that we can do as a human being is to use our body. And the biggest thing we can do to change literally our state of being is to use our body. And it doesn't matter to me, what age a person is, or where they're at kind of in their life, but to use what you got. And because we were built to move, and we were built to maximize all these physical attributes that we've got here. So the first is that exercise is critical, and it doesn't have to be, some of the stuff like you jump on the social media, you jump on and you see some of the, some really extreme stuff. It's very intimidating. It can be as simple and as beneficial, as basically as walking. And then from there, you can build up on it. So that's the first thing, is to make the commitment to use your body and understand that physical movement will change your physiology. It'll change your mental state. And the other thing is that it happens over a period of time. But as you do it, you'll find that it can happen faster. You can actually induce some changes. It's like one of the things, like if I'm just not feeling good, like if I'm kind of feeling a little bit of gloom and doom, or as I say, some stinking thinking, because there's a lot of things that happen in life or happens to family or friends that it all kind of weighs in, is just go for a brisk walk. Go for a 1 mile run, and that sometimes can just help clear the head, and it release some endorphin, get blood moving, things so that's the first thing. Then the second thing really is that I didn't do this for a long time, but actually I kind of found out I was doing it, but I didn't realize I was doing it. So you hear folks will talk about write your goals down, and it's so important. Like if you have a drive to be somewhere, and that can be just the littlest things, like it's important to write those goals down. And it's not like I want to drive a Ferrari. That could be something that you want to attain, but in order to do that, there's things that have to happen in between there. So to drive that Ferrari, it might be, okay, well, my goal is to, I want to find what my passion is. find my passion, and then I can, I'm simplifying this, earn the income to be able to attain something like that. But so I've used the method of a vision board the very beginning. When I was 30, I was, I was overweight. I was probably I lost a total of 60 pounds all the way through that process. But I had on my vision board, where I wanted to be, that some of the activities I wanted to do. And that was like kayaking, it wasn't like, bodybuilding, any of those things. So the vision board, and I would just go through magazines and just put stuff up there. So things I would see every day that would keep me focused on where I wanted to be. Today, every year I write out a list of goals, things I want to achieve. I have it laminated in multiple places in my home. The bathroom, which I look at it in the bathroom. I have it in my car. I have it in my office. I'll look at those goals before I go into a meeting. That helps me focus on, who I want to be and what I'm looking to deliver into a meeting. So, those, I would say that those two things, broken down into small bits, really starts to carve the path.
Definitely. So whenever you're writing out those goals, do you have like a specific number of goals that you tend to stick to that you find that's most effective?
So what I did is I broke it basically out into 3 categories. I broke it out to, we'll say, the physical category. And for me, it's like right now, it's at the age of 44, it's painful to say, but the age of 44, I'd like to have a 225 pound clean. So I have that on there, right? I have a purple belt. I know that I won't achieve that in this next year, but that's in jiu-jitsu, I have that on there. I have that as a CrossFit coach, what I want to be able to offer to the athletes as far as contributing to their wellness, their fitness there. So, and then recovery is a big thing. So I have recovery written down, every day I try to spend 15 to 20 minutes in the morning or at night doing something to recover from the day's activities there. And then I have my family. I have 3 kids, been married for almost 20 years. And I have basically how I want to, be patient, be kind, practice gratitude with them and with my wife, and to be a leader of the family. And so I have that section of my goals. And then I have, of course, my business financial goals, what kind of earner I want to be, who I want to be in business. And some of it kind of is an affirmation that I go through there. But so that's how I've done it, those 3 mains. And then inside that, I have maybe I would say 4 to 5 that are there. And some grab more attention than others, and then it kind of switches. But it's always something that I'm looking at, and it's always something that's around me.
Definitely. Now, whenever you're writing out those goals, is there like a specific time that you usually find that's most effective to write those out?
So I'm just going to say, like, and then people will talk about this, the New Year's resolution or that. I don't do any of that per se. Like, it's not because like what is it? It's August, right? So if today's the day, then today's the day, right? Like, it's not like I would encourage folks to, once you've said to yourself, like, this is what I want to do. Like, I'm not going to do, I know, I really need to do this, but I'm going to wait. That's the time. Or I'm going to keep doing this until January 1st. It's like, that's the first thing is stop that. You've put the idea out there. Now you need to make the decision to commit to action, right? That needs to happen. So now for me, it just so happens that in January is when I redo my goals. That just ties into one of my accountability methods that I developed. Simple accountability method. I developed it back in 2006, 7. So every year I print a calendar, a 12-month calendar, small, that's a small 8.5 by 12 calendar. It's got all the months and the days on there. And it kind of ties back to when people start training. Like, I'm going to go into the gym every single day. And it's like, again, it's biting off it. It's taking just giant bites of the elephant. It may not be successful. Or how do I work out? Do I work out 2 days a week, 2 on, 1 off, 2 on, 1 off, 2 on, 1 off? I mean, it can be overwhelming because you can go out there and you can just blow your mind up with all these different ways of training. Separate kind of topic there. But all I did was like, if I looked at a month that's got 31 days on it, and every day I train, I do something, whether that's in that time period, I did a lot of road biking, just gym workouts, did some swimming, like trying a whole bunch of stuff. I put a dot on the day, right? So all I want in a month is more dots than days. And so that just kind of tied into, okay, well, December 31st, that's the end of that calendar. Let's reset this thing and go. So my goals are rewritten in January. I look at them, I would say, daily. And there's been some times that I've, been like, this isn't just working for me. I'm distracted from this. It's not really fitting into what I'm really seeing for myself. And so it's actually, in some sense, this goal has been counterproductive at this point in my life. And so then I'll rewrite it at any point to get it back into focus to where I'm not necessarily seeing the results right away, but I'm enjoying being on the quest or the path. And that was like one of the things is, Tony Robbins, I think, is a great person. And it's one of the things he points out. It's not so much like how many times you accomplished a goal and then you feel really good. And then it's kind of like, oh man. So what was the biggest reward? And really the biggest reward was everything it took to get to that moment. So that's why, the goals are always changing or being adjusted, and where you can find you can be proud of yourself as you take the steps.
Definitely. Yeah. I find that personally one of the most effective times for me to write down my goals is on my birthday. It allows me to reflect on the year that I've just had and then look forward to the year to come. So I find that that's usually an effective time for me to kind of rally my thoughts and see where I want to go in a lot of cases. So
I would agree with that. 100%. I think, the moment, in a sense, has to have significance to you as an individual, and you have to kind of be tied to it or committed there. So that may be why, the New Year's resolution or whatever, kind of gains and has that sticking thing to it. But I would agree with you. A birthday would be, or an excellent way, because it's a personal thing, right? That's you, and that's your year, that you can literally say, you can measure yourself by that personal year that you had. I would also, maybe for some folks, it might be a significant moment in their life, an anniversary of something, or even just that you just, what, sick and tired of being sick and tired. Days to day, I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna start. And but I would really recommend in that is that and I tell a lot of my folks that come into the gym for their first couple workouts is just do yourself a favor, go home and print. You've got this goal, go home and print this calendar and stick it on your refrigerator. and just make dots. And, if you end up in a month that you had, 15, you got in here 15 times. It's 15 more times than you did the previous month. And so then it's really easy to go, okay, well, I'm going to get 16 this month. And then I'm going to get 17. And if you go backwards one month, you're all right, well, let's just redo this. And that right there, over that's the other thing is growth is the best part of growth is over. And this, we got to let ourselves know this, is that it's small decisions, small good decisions made over time. That's what adds up to a really good life. That's what adds up. And I think that if people do some reflection and look at that really went well for me. That was, oh, well, how did I get there? And you just didn't wake up and roll out of bed that day and be like, oh man, I got that job promotion, or, it's over time. And that's, I think that on the physical side, in number one, in improving your health, increasing your fitness, it's one small decision, and a lot of those made up over time. And then, before you know it, you're like, I got, 30 days, man. I was in the gym 27 times, a couple of days of rest. And on those rest days, I didn't really sit on the couch. I went and did a run, or I did a swim, or I went paddleboarding. And, as another person that I listen a lot to, Jocko, is I used my time, my relaxation time, not doing stupid things, but doing good things.
Mm-hmm.
Like that. So,
yeah. One of the things that I kind of think about is even if you just make 0.5% better every single day, that's still roughly 180% better that you're getting in a year. And if you bump that up to 1% a day, that's 365% that you're going to get every single year. So you can make these micro adjustments that have a massive impact after the time is compounded.
Yes, and that's exactly there's a book one of the, that I'm not a great reader. I really read 0 books through most of my adult life, and then it was probably 4 years ago. I was listening to a podcast or a video or something, and this guy Dan Harris wrote a book called 10% Happier. That's to your point, and it kind of put me on the on meditation and mindfulness, because that, again, it's one of those things oh, I can't sit, how do you do that, right? Oh, forget it, that's not for me. Or I'm interested in that, but I don't even, but it really phrased it beautifully. What if you could do something and it would make, and you just felt 10% better? Not 100, not 50, just 10. And that's to your point. And I think that's, again, another thing to the folks that are out there that can feel that itch. They know, they just know there's that thing that's looming out there. I want to make this decision. I want to make this change in my life, but I see all the things that are in front of me to do it. And then you just kind of lose that focus. And I wouldn't call it motivation, because motivation, it comes and it goes. I think the better you get at, I don't want to say get at life, but get at you experience things while you're on your path. You can motivate yourself when you're kind of coming off. But it's more the inspiration, right? So how do I inspire myself? And that's to the point, is that you inspire yourself by saying, yeah, if I'm 1% better than I was yesterday, or if I'm doing something that makes me 10% happier or better overall in the year, that over time is huge. One thing that, another way to look at it is if you start lifting weights, you look at these huge power lifters, right? I mean, you have a guy or a gal that's lifting an astronomical amount of weight off the ground. Let's just say 800 pounds, just to be obnoxiously heavy and outlandish, right? So that's that power lifter. then all of a sudden gets to where they're lifting 805 pounds. That's a significant, or 810 pounds. That amount of weight doesn't seem like it's that much, but the amount of weight that's there to that's a significant improvement in that. And so, those percentages, as little as they are, they count. And, one of a big lesson that I learned too in this is to give yourself forgiveness. And you and I talked about this before too, when we first met, was, Jordan Peterson's 12 rules to life. And the 2 rules that really stick with me are rules 2 and 4. The second rule is basically treat yourself like you're somebody that you care about, right? Mm-hmm. And then the 4th rule is kind of what we're talking about here, is to measure yourself based on, or to be better than you were yesterday, and don't measure yourself on who somebody else is today. Those are 2 powerful things, especially in the getting started phase, and even well into it. But be kind to yourself, love yourself where you are, and then set your goal just to do today. And then every day you can look back and go, you know what? I did this yesterday. I'm better today. I'm going to just keep doing that. I'm just going to keep doing it. And focus not on what you see out there, but what you see right there. And those things, they do matter. They will matter.
Definitely. I also think one of the other things that a lot of people tend to look over is their level of analysis. They only have control over so much, and you have to take control of the environment that you have control over, and that you can actually reach. And then through that process, your environment will slowly expand, and then your impact becomes greater over time, instead of trying to start at a societal level, or with your entire group of peers maybe. Instead of trying to make all of them change, just change your own environment, and then after that point, your environment will begin to expand, and you can make a greater impact.
Yeah, be your own influence. Influence yourself, and what you do and your actions, and just how you do things. And you might find that when you make these decisions, when I made the decision. So I'll just kind of walk this. I made the decision when I was 30, because where my weight was at and the things that I had been just doing, that I needed to change that. And I did that. And in the course of doing that, it was slow, but it also had impacts in some of the group of friends that I was running around. Some I didn't run around as much. Others decided that they were going to make some different choices. And these aren't radical choices, but these are just choices of instead of going and doing this on Friday and Saturday nights, one of my very good friends, picked up fishing. And I'm talking fishing. I guess you'd be called an angler. So the choices that he would make, say example, on a Friday night, he necessarily wouldn't make those, because Saturday morning, up and at him and going, right? So, and it wasn't, I'm not saying I was the catalyst for it, but I was saying that what I started to do in my life, just kind of filtered out there. It is the changes that you want. And if there is something that's out in your environment, and in your social network, you might have to slowly pull back from some of those people or influences that are around you, but it doesn't have to happen right away. Or you might find that based on the choices that you decide to make, the better decisions or the new decisions that someone's making, that they'll just drift away. And that relationship, change is the only constant, right? So, and that you might find that that's okay. Kind of on that topic, it's a lot of this is lot of it's perception too. Like I've got a couple favorite like authors that I like to read. Sometimes I have to read the book twice, and sometimes on some of these books, like they're pretty complex. Like I'll buy the book and then be like, oh man, I'm just not very proficient at reading this, and I'll download the audiobook and read the book while they read to me read to me. And it does help for a lot of times for the retention. But Eckhart Tolle has in one of his books, and this is kind of it's a concept I constantly visit with my wife, is that, and I believe it to be a truth. It's a truth for me, is that the world is inside you. And what it really means is that everything that you perceive, that I perceive, is inside of me. And the person over here, and this is like people's differences, right? Like we could be looking at the same piece of art, and based on who we are inside, we're going to maybe see it a little bit different. And that's a lot of the beauty of human beings. But it also gives you great power, because if the world's inside me and my perception of what's out in the external world, it means that at some levels, I can change some of that. I can change, and it's hard and it's painful at times, but if I look through my perception, if I look to see that I have control there to make my decisions, then that does influence that external world, and it will influence micro level, but and even on bigger levels. That's the book that I'm currently reading now, which I would encourage everybody to read, is Nelson Mandela's biography, because that man, that human being, he did what he did for humanity, is just really remarkable, and he did it just by following what he knew to be right, and it wasn't like he in a lot of senses during that time they kind of made up the path, and it was not an easy path. It's still not an easy path, but yeah, it's the influence that you have, and that's powerful, right? Like it's hugely powerful to go like, well, you can help the largest way for a lot of humans to help themselves is to do what? Is to contribute or help other people. And then the other thing that you always hear is, well, you can't help anybody unless you help yourself. So if we tie it all back around, I made the decision that I'm not feeling well about, whether it be my weight or whether it be my mental. I mean, I'm having some, I'm not just feeling good. But I know that, and it may be the decisions that I've been making. Okay, so I recognize that, because your gut will tell you, right? Your second brain will tell you, that's great. You got there, and now, and then with that is like, other people in the family might be having in the immediate family who you have immediate influence over, might be having some trouble. Okay, so what's the smallest bite we can take? Well, we acknowledge it, and then today, right now, we pull out a piece of paper and we write down the goals. They don't have to be perfect. You just write them down. And that's the start. And then you start looking at those every day, making decisions based on that every day. A lot of times, if you listen to enough influential people that, and as a side note, we live in like one of the greatest times in society. The fact that we can go onto YouTube, we have podcasters, the breadth of knowledge that's available is phenomenal. Sometimes it's overwhelming. It's like, well, where do you stop? And was this, but and people, you'll find where your lane is on that. But is to go into that, and so there's resources are available just to kind of help. But you'll hear a lot of it is to carry your goals around. that's why I have them in different spots, so that I just can constantly see that. And that's the largest thing, is make the decision, to commit to action. And and then it's just that one step at a time.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, is there anything else that you would like to let the listeners know?
Just really that there really isn't, a secret sauce. I think that, what I would encourage anyone to do is to explore, work on a framework. And like what I just talked about is the things that have worked for me, but, I'm going on like 14 years of a very long path that I'm happy to be on. And so I'm far from like anywhere from perfect. I'm far from any of those things. So that's kind of like when we first talked, is like, if there's average, I strive to be just above average, and then build on that every year and every day. So don't be afraid to get started. Don't be afraid to fail, because people fail their way to success. But hold yourself accountable. And the easiest thing, I think the best thing to do, is to print that calendar, put it somewhere that you can see it. I think the fridge, and just look to have more dots than empty days. And then you're making progress.
Definitely. I think one of the greatest sayings that I've heard in regards to that is, the most successful people in the world have failed more times than you've ever tried. And that's something that we just need to fail forward, fail fast, and learn fast, so we can succeed as much as we can.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and like no matter anybody, anybody can improve their situation. And if it's, you can do it. And it's hard work. But then somebody asked, the thing is like, well, sometimes what's the point of life? And maybe the point of life sometimes is just to see how well you can live it. Don't punish yourself on the person that you were in your past. That's another big thing that I've learned, is that, and this is going to sound kind of really philosophical in some senses, but like my 20-year-old self is really only alive in my memory, right? Like physically, my bones have shed themselves and regrown themselves. Everything has regrown itself and regenerated itself. So, that person, that person that made some of those poor choices and did those things, they're not really here. And so I can say, okay, well, 20-year-old Shane or 25-year-old Shane or whatever Shane, you know what, I forgive you on that. I'm better today. And sometimes that's forgiving yourself and letting things kind of go back and let them be where they're at is also another very liberating thing. And you might find that in just giving yourself that helps just push you and give you that inspiration to yourself, that you're a good person and you're taking the right steps now. And that's really what counts.
Definitely. Well, I really appreciate you hopping on here. I love having these conversations with you. You're really an interesting guy. And I look forward to having you on again sometime.
All right. Thanks, Jayton. Oh, and one last thing. Take your UMZU supplements.
Oh, yeah, definitely. What's your favorite one over there?
Oh man, I'm gonna just, I think it's everybody's favorite one. Redwood. It's just, I think everything over there has its benefit, but Redwood, it's kind of like, I would say it's like the calendar staple. It's like from Redwood you can build on and pick your path on the rest of the product line, but it's what brought me into the family. And I tell everybody that I train with about it, because it's literally, it's a quality of life difference maker. That's what I'll put it like that.
Heck yeah. Well, again, I appreciate you, and we'll talk soon.
All right, brother. Take care.
You too. Thanks again for listening to the Thermo Diet Podcast. Make sure if you haven't already to hit the like button, subscribe, and leave us a review. It helps us out a ton.